Far beyond the influence of the known star systems and the empires of countless species, this ripple signified the arrival of something far more consequential than any interstellar war or celestial event. The ripple was a signal, a harbinger of the greatest and final judgment. Zerath Prime, an isolated world in a distant galaxy, had long been the meeting ground for a council of transcendent beings known as the Heralds of Oblivion. These beings, who had existed since before time was measured, were the keepers of cosmic balance. They had seen civilizations rise and fall, witnessed entire species ascend to godhood or devolve into extinction, and intervened only when absolutely necessary to prevent catastrophic imbalance in the fabric of the universe. Their forms, each one as different as the worlds from which they had been born, converged in the shadow of two moons orbiting Zerath Prime. Zelnor, the guardian of the rift, was the first to arrive. His crystalline structure sparkled as he descended from the atmosphere, his very presence distorting the light around him. He had been a sentinel of space-time itself, preventing disruptions that could unravel the universe. His form pulsed with tension, for he had felt the coming of the ripple, an event he had not foreseen, and this disturbed him deeply. Following him came Olyra, the emissary of shadows, her form barely visible as she flickered between dimensions. She moved like liquid shadow, her voice a whisper that seemed to come from every direction. She had been the judge of unseen forces, dark energy, antimatter, and the unseen flows of cosmic winds. Her arrival was punctuated by a slight dimming of the twin moons, as if reality itself bent to accommodate her presence. Beside her, Zera, the bringer of light, landed softly on the planet's surface. She radiated warmth and vitality, her golden glow illuminating the barren ground beneath her feet. Zera had always been the herald of new beginnings, of rebirth after destruction, but the ripple had left her troubled. Her usual aura of hope had dimmed to a soft glow, and the ever-present smile had disappeared from her face. Even she, the eternal optimist, could sense that this was no ordinary cosmic shift. Others followed Threnos, the shaper of worlds, whose form was as malleable as molten rock, Kal, the chronomancer, a being who wove time like threads of a grand tapestry, and finally, Maruk, the eater of stars, a massive, dark entity who had consumed dying suns to prevent their supernovas from destabilizing entire sectors of the universe. Each of them gathered, their collective presence a reminder of their shared duty to protect the delicate balance of creation. They had been summoned not by an official call, but by the ripple itself, a disturbance in the very fabric of existence, which they instinctively knew would draw them together. For millennia, they had maintained balance in the universe, stepping in only when absolutely necessary to prevent an imbalance that could lead to chaos. They had been observers, silent guardians who watched the rise and fall of civilizations from the shadows, always ensuring that one force did not dominate over another for too long. But now, standing beneath the flickering twilight of Zerath Prime's twin moons, they all felt the same chilling realization: something had come that was beyond their power to control. Without warning, the sky above them began to crackle with energy. At first, it was subtle, a shift in the air, an unnatural calm. But then, the stars seemed to blink out one by one, as though an invisible hand was reaching out and snuffing them from existence. The heralds exchanged glances, their forms tensing, as they prepared for what they had long feared. A tear in the very fabric of space-time appeared high above them, a gaping wound in the cosmos itself. From that wound, a golden light poured forth, illuminating the surface of Zerath Prime as though it were bathed in the light of 1,000 suns. The heralds raised their heads, watching as the vessel of eternal dawn emerged. The ship was unlike any they had ever seen before, despite their existence spanning eons. It was enormous, larger than most planets, and its hull was crafted from some unidentifiable material that shimmered with a golden glow. It was not just a ship, it was a living entity, its surface pulsing with veins of light, twisting and shifting as though the vessel itself was alive. Its form was both majestic and terrifying, a fusion of mechanical precision and organic beauty. The legends of the vessel of eternal dawn had existed for as long as sentient life itself. In ancient texts and myths, it was said to be the ship of the Arbiter, the cosmic force that would appear at the end of all things to deliver judgment upon the universe. The vessel was neither a weapon nor a savior, it was the reset button of creation, the tool through which the cycle of life, death, and rebirth would be initiated once again. As the ship hovered silently in the sky above them, a beam of energy shot down from its base, connecting with the planet's surface. The ground trembled beneath the feet of the heralds, and the very air vibrated with power. This was not a weapon, not an attack, this was the signal of an irreversible reckoning. Zellner, always the leader among them, stepped forward, his crystalline eyes reflecting the golden light from above. "It is here," he said, his voice trembling with both awe and fear. "The time of reckoning has come." Olara, still flickering between dimensions, materialized fully and spoke in a voice that seemed to echo from the shadows themselves. "The vessel of eternal dawn arrives only when the balance has been irreparably broken. It is the end of all things." Zara's golden glow dimmed as she looked skyward. "But we have maintained the balance. We have done everything within our power to keep the universe from falling into chaos." Kal, the chronomancer, his eyes swirling with the endless rivers of time, shook his head slowly. "We have delayed the inevitable, but the universe is old, too old. The scales have tipped. This is the price we must pay." Suddenly, a figure began to emerge from the base of the energy beam, a humanoid form, forged from the same golden light as the ship itself. It descended slowly, its feet never touching the ground, hovering just above the surface of Zarath Prime. Its face was featureless, save for two burning eyes that radiated with the intensity of a supernova. The heralds, beings of immense power and authority, found themselves kneeling before the figure. It was not an act of submission but of recognition that the being before them was not merely powerful, but a manifestation of the cosmic will itself. This was the Arbiter, the final judge of all existence. The Arbiter's voice echoed in their minds, bypassing language and entering directly into their consciousness. "The universe has fallen into imbalance. Sentient beings have tampered with the natural order, disrupted the cycles of life, and expanded beyond their means. The corruption has spread too far. The vessel of eternal dawn is here to restore equilibrium." Zellner, his crystalline form shimmering with unspoken defiance, stood. "We have kept the balance for eons. We have prevented the rise of forces that would destroy the universe. Is there no other way?" The Arbiter's burning eyes focused on Zellner. "The balance has been maintained, but at a cost. The actions of the many have led to this moment. The universe itself cries out for renewal. The vessel of eternal dawn does not choose, it is the mechanism through which the cosmos corrects itself." The words hit the heralds like a tidal wave. They had known their purpose for eons, understood their duty to maintain the equilibrium of all existence. But they had never imagined that the balance they fought so hard to protect would one day demand the destruction of everything they had worked to preserve. Zara stepped forward, her golden glow flickering with uncertainty. "What will happen to the civilizations we have nurtured, to the lives we have guided and protected?" The Arbiter's gaze swept over the heralds. "They will return to the void from which they came. But from the void, new life will arise. The cycle will begin anew, and perhaps, this time, the balance will be maintained." As the Arbiter spoke, the vessel above them began to hum with energy, its golden veins pulsing in rhythm with the very heartbeat of the universe. The beam of energy connecting the ship to the planet intensified, and the ground beneath their feet began to dissolve, turning into light and being drawn upward into the vessel. The heralds, for all their power and wisdom, stood helpless. They had always known that this day might come, that their work, no matter how eternal it seemed, would one day come to an end. One by one, the heralds closed their eyes, accepting their fate. And as the vessel of eternal dawn ascended back into the stars, the universe exhaled. The cycle had ended. But in the endless expanse of the cosmos, another was just beginning. As the vessel of eternal dawn ascended into the void, a profound silence enveloped the universe, a silence not of absence, but of transformation. The old stars, their light dimming and collapsing inward, blinked out one by one, like candles extinguished by a cosmic hand. The galaxy itself, once a tapestry of brilliant colors and nebulae, became a vast ocean of darkness. But within that darkness, a new rhythm began, an almost imperceptible hum, the first echoes of rebirth. The heralds of oblivion, whose lives had been bound to the balance of existence, found themselves dissolving into the same golden light that had consumed the planets, stars, and civilizations they had once guarded. Their consciousnesses, which had stretched across eons, began to fragment, piece by piece returning to the raw energy of the universe. But within this dissolution, something unexpected happened. Zellner, the guardian of the rift, felt a tug, a pull that stopped his complete absorption into the void. His crystalline form, though shimmering and breaking apart, remained tethered to a remnant of existence. His awareness sharpened, and his mind, which should have dissolved, instead became focused on a faint spark, a new beginning. Suddenly, Zellner was aware of himself again. He stood not on Zerath Prime, but on a plane of existence that defied the laws of time and space. It was neither the past nor the future, neither a place nor an absence. Here, in this pocket of untouched reality, time stretched infinitely in all directions, and yet, everything was still. Zellner looked around, and to his astonishment, he saw Olyra emerge from the shadows, her liquid, ethereal form materializing in front of him. Her eyes, once dark and filled with mysteries, now reflected the same perplexity that he felt. She looked down at her hands, surprised to still have form at all. "This shouldn't be possible," she whispered, her voice no longer an echo, but a solid, resonant tone. As more moments passed, or were they eons, the other heralds began to emerge around them. Zera, her golden light flickering weakly but persistently, appeared next to Zellner. Kal, the chronomancer, stood still, eyes wide as he attempted to comprehend the time streams that had once been his domain but now lay shattered and beyond his control. Threnos, Maruk, and the others materialized soon after, each visibly disoriented. "What is this place?" Threnos, the shaper of worlds, asked. His molten, ever-shifting form seemed to be slowly solidifying, as if the very nature of this plane resisted his ability to mold it. Zellner, the first among equals, gathered his thoughts, though confusion lingered on his features. "I believe this is beyond the end. A place untouched by the destruction the vessel brought upon the universe. But why are we here? We should have ceased to exist," Olyra mused, her voice sharper now, a touch of fear creeping into her tone. Before anyone could answer, a familiar hum vibrated through the fabric of the strange realm they found themselves in. The golden light, the same radiant energy that had consumed the universe, reappeared, not from the skies this time, but from deep within themselves. The vessel of eternal dawn, once a colossal ship that blotted out stars, now manifested before them, albeit in a smaller, more concentrated form. It hovered, its pulsating veins of light glowing softly, exuding an aura of calm rather than the overpowering presence it had commanded earlier. From its center, the figure of the Arbiter emerged once again, though this time, his form was more defined. He now appeared as a regal figure, draped in shimmering robes of light, his once featureless face now displaying a calm, yet stern expression. "You have questions," the Arbiter said, his voice resonating through their very beings. "And you deserve answers." The heralds stood in silence, awaiting the explanation they so desperately needed. "The universe, as you knew it, has ended," the Arbiter began, floating above the shimmering ground. But this end was not the final cessation of all things. It was merely the close of one chapter in the infinite cycle of existence. The Arbiter's gaze swept over them, his eyes glowing with an intensity that seemed to pierce their very souls. "The balance you maintained for so long. It was fragile, always teetering on the edge of collapse. The forces of creation and destruction are in constant flux, and your work, while noble, delayed an inevitable reckoning. And so, you destroyed everything." Zara interjected, her voice trembling with frustration. "We maintained the balance as best we could. Was there truly no other way?" The Arbiter nodded solemnly. "The universe was old. Too old. Its foundations were crumbling, and no amount of intervention could prevent that. The scales had tipped too far. Life, death, and rebirth had lost their meaning, and the corruption had spread too deep. The cycle had to be reset, not just for the good of the cosmos, but for the sake of creation itself." Zellner, ever the pragmatic leader, stepped forward. "Then why are we here? Why have we been spared?" The Arbiter's expression softened. "You have not been spared. You have been chosen. Each of you, in your own way, represents the forces that govern the universe: creation, destruction, time, space, and everything in between. But your roles in the previous cycle have ended. The vessel did not spare you out of pity or favoritism. It has given you a new purpose." The heralds exchanged glances, uncertain of what this new purpose could be. Kal, the chronomancer, whose understanding of time had been shattered by the vessel's arrival, spoke next. "If we no longer maintain the balance, what is left for us to do?" The Arbiter raised his hand, and the golden light surrounding them intensified. "You are no longer the keepers of balance, for the balance as you knew it has been reset. The universe that will be born from the void will need new architects, beings who can shape its future, set its foundations, and guide it toward a new equilibrium." The realization dawned on them all at once. They were not here as mere survivors of the apocalypse, they were to become the creators of the next universe. "You will not simply watch over this new universe," the Arbiter continued. "You will be its architects, its designers, its gods. Each of you will have the power to shape it in ways that align with your essence. But remember this, the mistakes of the past must not be repeated. If you fail to maintain harmony in this new cycle, the reckoning will come again." Zellner, ever the leader, nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of what had been placed upon them. "We are to build the future of all existence." "Yes," the Arbiter said, his voice echoing with finality. "But the vessel of eternal dawn will always remain. Should you fail, it will return, and the cycle will end once more." With that, the Arbiter began to dissolve into the golden light, his form returning to the vessel, which pulsed with the same infinite energy as before. The heralds watched as the ship, now their silent guardian, faded into the distant stars. Zellner turned to the others, his crystalline form now glowing with a renewed sense of purpose. "We have been given a second chance. Not just to protect, but to create. Zara, her light growing stronger with hope, smiled softly. We will make sure this new universe is worthy of existence. And so, with the stars as their canvas and the void as their guide, the heralds began their work. From the ashes of the old, they would create a new reality, one shaped not by the mistakes of the past, but by the infinite possibilities of the future. This was not the end. It was a new beginning. The cycle had begun again.